Hello, aweefians. Hello. Good morning. Happy weekend. I hope you're well. I hope you are having a great start to your weekend. And I hope you're happy to see us because today it's an amazing day. I have a great speaker for you, a brother who has the intention of really changing the narratives of Africa. So please come join me. Let's have a few minutes of discussions. And please, if you find some value in the live stream as we go on, do share it out with those who mean the best to you, those who are important to you, your family, your friends. So please share out this video as much as you can, and we'll really appreciate that. Today, we are going to be talking of reasons why Africa is attracting more and more foreign investors. And our specialist today is somebody who has mastered the field, someone who is talking about VC funds, someone who is really explaining to people that it is wise to invest in Africa. And to kick off today's live stream, today's talk show, we are going to start with this quote, which says, "Aid should shift to investment. This will help countries stand on their own feet." And this quote is from Jacob Zuma. I'll repeat, aid should shift to investment. This would help countries stand on their own feet. But as we start to ponder upon this quote, let's read or let's get a little feeling of who our today's guest is. Steve Odihambo is an award-winning entrepreneur and innovator. He has vast experience in building sustainable businesses from ideas to execution. He is a recipient of the Galileo Master Award by the European Space Agency. Steve has built an extensive network across the European Union and Africa. I'm so proud to be with such a young man today. I'm so proud to be an African, to see the changes and how people have decided to change their lives. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Steve Odihambo. Hello, Steve. Hello. How are you today?
Hello, Lilian. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm great. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I feel very honored to be on your show. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Steve, I'm very proud of you. I'm so proud of you. The steps you're taking, the initiatives you're taking. I appreciate your boldness, and on behalf of Africa, thank you for all the work you're putting out there. You've decided to give a lot of your time to Africa to change the narratives. So as we listen to Jacob Zuma's quote, which says, aid should shift from to investment instead. And you are the specialist of this. What do you say about this quote? How true is this?
Thank you for that. And that's a brilliant quote to start us off, because the thing about aid, Lillian, is aid means there is someone on the receiving, there's one person on the giving end, and there's another person on the receiving end. Now, guess what that does to the self-esteem and the pride and the self-image of the person on the receiving end? Right? So, I mean, that simply just explains it in a nutshell. As Africans, you know, the whole human civilization, humanity started in Africa. So guess how proud we are supposed to be, right? So we need to have a more positive self-image simply because we can do things on our own, and it needs to be investment, self-empowerment, economic empowerment, and not hand-me-down aid.
Yeah. I completely agree with you on that, because I believe when we help, it's good to help someone. But when we keep on helping this person, we do not teach them how to fend for themselves. It's like we are keeping them in that cage to depend on that aid which we are providing for them each time. And I think it's time for Africa to really break its barriers and stand for itself, because they've got all what they need. They have the human resources, they have the natural resources. So it's time for Africa to say, let's change things for ourselves. As an entrepreneur, you are on a mission to create the next generation of African entrepreneurs and investors. Why are you passionate about this? Or what led you to this passion?
Again, a brilliant question, Lillian. Well, I've been running my own business for the past 4 years, right? And I was fortunate enough to get considerable amount of funding to start my first business. But I hit the proverbial glass ceiling when I was trying to raise more money. I clearly needed more money in order to enable me to execute in Africa, right? To scale my business and grow, at the rate that the business needed to grow. Well, I wasn't able to do that. And the reality of the matter is, when I talk about the glass ceiling, that is the situation. Whether you're in United States of America, whether you're in London, African entrepreneurs or African CEOs simply face more challenges when raising considerable amounts of money, right? We're talking about $1 million upward, right? So that in itself showed me that there is a discrepancy, there is a problem here that needs to be solved. And Lillian, my life philosophy has always been to fix problems so that future generations don't have to face these problems, right? So I faced that challenge, great. Now I will go out and try and build a system, try and build a model that will solve this problem for all the entrepreneurs that will come after me.
And we're blessed and grateful for that route that you've taken, because you could have just been comfortable in your life, but you chose to go out there, not to think only about yourself, but to think of others. Now, before we move on to the next question, I'm grateful you put out the figures there. Raising $1 million is expensive, and that's only for men, I would suppose. For women, it's even more complicated, raising 100,000. As a specialist in this field, how can women in Africa start, changing their path? What steps can they use to just change a little bit the game, or just in the search of raising funds? What are we doing wrong? Why is it that we have so much difficulties raising funds?
The thing about access to finance or access to capital, especially when it comes to women, I think women have just not been very well represented in the startup hubs across Africa, in technology hubs, and all these other places. I think we need to make these centers and institutions more accessible to women. So that's number one. We need to get more women involved. And I'll give you my perspective from having lived in Europe for over 10 years, Lillian. Yes. There is a vast majority of women in the diaspora, whether it is America, Canada, Europe, Australia. There's actually more women than men. Yes. So I will go back to your previous question about why I set out to solve these challenges, because I think that there is a capital base in the women in the diaspora that can be used to empower financially women who are on the continent and they're looking to set up their own businesses. So that's something I would love us to get into, in the coming questions as well. The capital base that empowered women have, and they could empower other women as well.
Great. I love your point of view, and I'm going to break it down a little bit for people to really grasp what you've said. What you're saying is that because the developed world exposes women to more opportunities than our African community, those who are abroad are the catalyst of the change that we want to see in the women back in Africa. So all those women watching this live stream, we need you as investors so you can improve the lives of women back in Africa, because you are more exposed, you have more opportunities, and you are the example that they want to see. So I really love your point of view of thinking of the women in the diaspora, that they have more exposure and more opportunity. So now, getting investors in Africa is one of your joy. You have many, but this is one of your joy. So please give us a breakdown how you merge the investors and the African businesses or startups. How do you merge this? What is your process? What process do you really use?
All right. So what I've done is I've actively started, championing this cause since last year. So it's been like a year since I've been trying to champion people towards raising funds. And I started because I realized that number one, the capital base is in the diaspora, right? If we look at the amount of money that the diaspora Africans send back home in form of remittance, billions of dollars. So that was my starting point. And then my next logical step became, well, the reason why most Africans do not invest in startups and businesses as they should, I mean, the investment is really below capacity, I think is because we are not exposed to investments. We are not exposed to how investments work, how to value a company. We're not exposed to, evaluating a business plan, taking a look at an idea and figuring out, well, is it worth putting my $10,000 in this business idea? We're not aware. So my second step was to create awareness by training. So I started doing these seminars all across Germany last year called the African Investor Masterclass, right? So that was a training seminar where I would invite people, they would come in and I would train them on how businesses are run, how to value businesses, how to put in your money, what are the legal frameworks, because this is also very important. When you're investing in a business, you become a shareholder in that business and you get, it all happens legally. And it's not on a trust basis. This is my sister or that is my brother's son. It has to be legal because this is hard-earned money that you're putting into a business. So these structures need to be put in place. And I went about informing people about that. So that was number two. And then number three, this is what we're doing this year, is now to actively go out, identify these businesses. I have been mentoring startups from Africa last year. And so I get a lot of startups approaching me, right? They approach me because they need investment, they need assistance, mentorship, and stuff like that. So during 2018, Lilian, we are now making the bold step where now we're saying, okay, we've got some money together from Africans in the diaspora. Now we want to identify companies, vet these companies, and put money in these businesses.
I love it. And please think of us. We have women that you should absolutely invest in them because they have great products, great services. And again, we Africans, I'm adding to your brilliant points, we Africans were not educated in such a mindset. Such a mindset of, putting part of your money here so you can get some kind of income stream. We just put it like in Jangi, like a local system, thinking when everybody's had their share, then now it's my turn. We were not educated in this manner. So right. The mindset is playing again, it's really against us. And we really have to work on that. And it's sad to say, but there is a generation problem here. I believe the younger generations are the ones that are going to benefit from this, and that the older generation seems they are a little bit hesitant. Have you come across that problem with the generations and open-mindedness?
Definitely, Lilian, definitely. And I'm glad you bring up this point. There's a generational gap, and it's huge. It's huge. So, and by I mean the generation of my parents, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's huge. It's a huge gap. I face these challenges at home, when trying to, explain certain points with my mother, we experience that. And I'm sure very many Africans go through the same. So what I believe needs to be done is that, we need to communicate more, because the new generation, younger than myself, the ones that are coming up, they are in a totally and completely different mindset. It doesn't matter if that young man or woman lives in Congo or lives in Norway, because the internet is that equalizer, so they have access to almost the same information, right?
Exactly.
So there are huge gaps, leaps and bounds. We need to address this problem. We need more women such as yourself. We need influencers from these generations, right? So we need influencers from even an older generation that can speak directly to people of their generation, and then we need, these generational influencers to sort of address this issue, because it is an issue.
Great. I love it. I love it, and I have lots of hope. And the hope I have is you and I sitting here talking about it and accepting that it's a problem in the family, and accepting that there are some difficulties and that we can talk about it. So I really love it. But before we continue our discussions, I would really like to acknowledge all those live viewers which are here with us. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Please comment, ask questions. This is your time to really get your answers from a professional. So share this video, but do not hesitate to ask your questions, and we'll answer them live. Okay. Now, Steve, investing in Africa is one big of a headache. It's one big of wahala, and it's complicated. What are some of the benefits in investing in Africa?
Very good. I'll start by the first part of your question. The wahala, I tell you, it's one big.
If you want a headache and you're too comfortable in your diaspora life, please go back home. Then you put your system in place.
Exactly. And there are tons of stories about people who've invested 50,000, 100,000. I've spoken to women who have put large amounts of money. And again, I speak about women because, Lilian, I think this change we are talking about will be driven by women.
Yes.
I don't know where the men are. If you're a man and you're watching this, I don't know, man. Where are you guys?
Just make sure you get your wife equipped, because she's going to be leading this thing, not you.
Women are going to lead this thing, and they are leading. I mean, look at women's organizations in the diaspora and men's organizations, right?
Yes.
So organization is key, but I digress. The point I'm trying to make is there's been tons of stories of people who have lost money, relationships that have been damaged, family members that have been, excommunicated simply because of, people get creative back in Africa when they need money.
Yes. That we all agree.
They get very creative. So I mean, we need, the first step is organization, and I really commend what you're doing, Lilian. So the first step is we need to organize, right? Organize ourselves in groups, organize ourselves in communities. The jangis you talked about in Kenya, we have the chamas. I think it's great that we resulted in doing these things, because it simply shows we realize, okay, there is a need for that. Great, fantastic. I wouldn't talk down on people who are doing the chamas and everything, but we need to elevate.
Yes,
we need to elevate, and by elevate I mean we need to figure out how do these systems work? How do things work? You know what I mean? Yes. Because there's a system to everything.
Yes. Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. To everything. We need to figure out how things work. So now to the second part of your question, it clearly makes more sense for, and I'm going to speak to people in the diaspora. It makes more sense. You have a family here. You have a job. You have a house. You have a whole life here, right? You cannot just uproot yourself and go to Africa and try and start a business, or try and manage a business and try and run a business, right? Those of us who already have livelihoods that they cannot uproot themselves from are better placed putting their money somewhere, right? And all the other in developed countries, in Germany, in America, this is what people do. You have your money work for you. You put it somewhere where that money gets to work, and you don't have to now start reading 100 books about running a business. And keep your job, do what you do, take care of your family. But if you have some money on the side, save 50%, invest 50%, right? Of your, the money that you put away. Have your savings, don't risk your savings, right? And then have a portion of that you say, all right, well, where are the investment funds or the investment groups that are credible, that are reliable, that I can put my money into and have it grow, right? So that's the approach that I'm championing for. Our jangis, our susus, our chamas, let us elevate, because pooling capital together, magic happens, people. Magic happens. Yes.
True. Yeah, great points. But I also feel attacked because you're talking to me. I have a life, I have a house, I have a job, I have the means. So please don't attack me. Okay, I hear you. Okay, Steve. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll invest. I get your point. I'm not the only one attacking you. Look at what somebody has to say. Jero says,
Yeah.
haha, we are here, Steve. You see, when you say, where are the men? So he's
Yes.
not the only one you're attacking. Please be gentle.
All right.
We are going to take action.
Great stuff.
So, Jaro, thanks for commenting. That's really nice of you. Come up with more comments, questions, so we can answer you live. Thank you so much for joining us live. Share with your family and friends, and we really appreciate that. So, Steve.
Sorry, Lilian.
Yes.
Is there a way I can share it? Because I'm on Be Live, and I'm trying to figure out a way that I could share it to my group as well.
You have to go to your profile and share it from there. Be Live does not give us that option of sharing directly from here.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you have an external device? Then we can share it from there.
All right. Perfect.
Or let's ask Jero. Jero, please help us share this out.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
You have a mobile? My kids have taken all the iPads down, and
so I have my
communication. Thank you so much.
That will just share. Wait. All right. So I'm going to share Gyro's post. Great.
Good. So we have more and more viewers joining us live. Please ask your questions. You have your specialist here with you today. And you've attacked me by telling me I should invest, which I will do. You've also gotten Jaro really on action here. Now it's our turn to really put questions to you. How much does it take to invest in Africa? Because we may have a life, a job, a house. We may not have much money to invest. So how much are you talking about?
Very good. So I want to go a few steps back to give people some context about investment, right? So and I'll use the example of the Jangis and the Chamas and the Susus. So when we have a group of 10, 15, 20 people putting their money together, and then they do like the table banking thing where it circulates.
Yes.
I know these things happen in Germany, in Europe.
Yes.
So, it's a small sort of self-help group. Now, when you're talking about investing in businesses or, projects in Africa, so this is a bit more large scale. And in countries such as Germany, okay, in the EU, the European Union, we have regulation.
Yeah.
We cannot avoid regulation. It's there to protect us. It's there to protect the investors. It's there to protect everyone involved because this is hard-earned money. So now, what happens is you can organize, or this is what we are doing now, right? To give context. Now, we are in the process of forming a fund, an investment fund. So an investment fund means that people would put their money into a fund, and then this fund would be charged with the mandate to scrutinize, identify, evaluate businesses, infrastructure projects to invest in, and the people who have bought into the fund will get a return on investment every year, right? So this is entirely regulated, completely compliant according to EU standards. This is the way to go. And I'm going to repeat this. This is the way to go. Why? Africans have traditionally always been shy of regulation. I'm putting it in the best way possible. Right? I'm going to be politically correct.
Yeah. Try hard to be politically correct.
Yeah. So we have been shy.
These are facts that we should grow into. We cannot pick and select what is good and shy away from what's not in our culture. I mean, these are facts, and it's great to share those points.
Correct, Lilian. So we have, we have always been shying away from regulations. We we will do anything to avoid, being in the system, taxes, and all these things. But it's simply because I don't think that Africans are malevolent, in that sense. I think it's just lack of awareness. Okay, how does it really work? And if we have people who could break it down and show, hey, people, this is exactly how it works, then we lead our people into these preformed structures where we can have a greater impact. It's just about awareness creation. We don't know. Majority of us don't know. And I don't blame you, right? So investment funds. Now, I want to talk about another very critical, and I will finish by your point of the amount to invest. So the other critical point to mention here is Africa is badly in need of infrastructure. Badly in need of infrastructure. If you look at the businesses being built right now, the startups, the most successful startups in Africa, the small businesses that are really growing, employing people, they are crippled by lack of internet connectivity in certain areas. They're crippled by lack of proper road infrastructure. So what we have been thinking about, my team and I, is how do we go to the base of the problem and then build from there, right? So we identified infrastructure. Now, this is why I'm mentioning infrastructure, Lilian. Europe has a huge capital base. So we're not talking about the Africans in the diaspora. We're talking about the capital market in Europe. Huge. Now, by capital market, I mean institutional investors. You have people like insurance companies. You pay in your insurance every month. They have a ton of money that they need to put to work. So they are these large institutional investors. You have pension funds, pension schemes, large institutional investors. Then you have the second category, a step lower than that. You have professional investors. So these are like the millionaires, the high net worth individuals within Europe that are also looking to put their millions to work. So these are the professional investors. And then you have the retail.
Yeah, good. I must stop you there because would like to know how to connect with you. We will get to that point. However, he has an amazing point here concerning regulations. You remember we spoke about regulations, and I'll put on the screen here. I hope you can see.
I can see that. Thank you so much.
Exactly. It says, I really do not think Africans have been shy of regulations. We were taught to stay away from things that would be beneficial. We cannot be poor on a rich place like Africa unless they are educated out of common sense. I will blow cases. I love you. I love the truth that's coming out of this conversation. And this is where my hope lies. We say it and people are backing us. All we are saying is that we are hurting one way or the other. Financially, spiritually, socially, there is nothing wrong with the education we received. However, we are living in a different epoch with opportunities and problems. How can we change our mindset? How can we change things for ourselves? So I love this conversation, how you say things which are really truthful, and I'm like, please don't attack me. And somebody else is saying, women are here. And then Awil is saying, yes, we were taught in a different way. So how would you answer Awil? What do you have to add to his comment? Thank you, Awil.
Thank you so much, Awil. That's a brilliant comment there. We were taught to stay away from things that would be beneficial. Yeah, very interesting, because again, that goes down to the education system, that goes down to the conditioning, how we were made to think, right? So in response to that, I think any community, any civilization has developed or grown by taking things into their own hands, right? Yes. So I love to give the example of the Jews. When the Jews left during the era with Hitler and the whole situation, when they left and they went to the United States of America, they were treated as badly as the African Americans were treated there. But look at where the Jews are now, right? So what that means is, out of every situation, the man, woman, and child has to rise up and empower themselves economically. They have to organize. It cannot come from someone else.
Yes.
It has never come from someone else, because every single community, people's nation in this world has their own interests at heart. Whether it's the Chinese man, whether it's the American, everyone has their own interests at heart. Don't expect anyone to lift you out of your poverty. So I believe that we need to rise up. We need to step to the plate. We need to start organizing. We need to pool our capital together, pool our funds together, and actually put that money to work. So thank you for that. It's our time is now.
Yes. And I love the comments here. Here is Jero again, speaking for himself and us all. We cannot be poor in a place like Africa. He's confirming what Awil said, and I completely agree. We cannot be. It's not possible. Something has to change. Something has to stop. Something really has to stop. It's our time to go in there and motivate, but also to inspire those who are back home thinking it's impossible for them to change their lives. Is this mentality of let's stay poor, rich wealth is something negative because we see it in the Bible. There is nothing wrong about being wealthy. The only thing that's wrong about money is the way you use your money. So let's stop playing too small here. Now, Steve, we've spoken about the money, the entry point. So how much, I still need the figures.
Yes.
How much are we talking about here?
Thank you for going back to that.
Yes, because I want to know. You told me I should invest. I want to know how much you're asking.
Yeah. Now, I was breaking down the three categories of investors, right? So I spoke about the institutional investors, the pension schemes, insurance companies are large. People put in hundreds of millions. And then you have the professional investors, high net worth individuals, the millionaires in our society. And then you have, so a professional investor puts in an amount starting from 200,000 euros and above. That's an accredited or a professional investor, single individual. Now, the third class is the retail investor, right? So this is a small scale investor, someone who is putting in sums of less than 200,000 euros. Okay. Now, the entry points, your question, the entry points in what we are building, the fund, is we are looking at people who can put in anything from 5,000 euros.
Ah, now you're talking. You scared me a little bit. You were talking of 100,000, 200. I'm like, oh, whoa. None of my women will be able to do that. So 5,000 euros is amazing.
Yes.
That's good, because then you bring in more people. This is amazing. I love the idea. I love the point. I love the entry point. So yeah, but before we continue, we have Awil with another comment. It says, we can change ourselves by changing our personality first. Please explain the structure of the financial investors in Europe. I think you touched a little bit about that already, but do you have anything else to add to Awil?
Fantastic. Thank you, Awil. Thank you, Awil. These are really, really important points here. The structure, because and I mentioned infrastructure in Africa, and I'm going to tie that into this to this response.
Okay.
So we talked about the 3 points, right? The 3 categories. Now, Europe has one of the largest capital markets, or the capital market, the amount of money available to be put to work. In Europe, they're way up there, okay? So regulations have happened after the economic meltdown in 2008, right? So 2010, 2015, especially the EU, they cracked down on that and they put regulations in place. Now, what did that mean? These regulations have meant that financial institutions such as banks have now very little incentive to take part in infrastructure development or infrastructure projects. So by infrastructure, we're talking about projects 100 million or more, right? 100 million euros or more. So banks have very little incentive to take part in these projects, and banks were the main financiers of these projects. So now they're like, okay, we're too regulated up to here. We'd rather walk away from that business. So that created a gap. That created a gap. So now you still have very large scale, very interesting, very high return infrastructure projects in developing countries, Africa. And you have a gap, a funding gap, where the very large institutional investors, the banks, who are the ones who would jump in, they say, no, we're not jumping in, so someone else needs to jump in. Here's where we come in. So now infrastructure in Africa needs to be built in order to safeguard the future businesses, the future, whether it's agriculture, whether it's healthcare, we need to build infrastructure. Let's not focus on innovating and creating tech startups, internet startups, blah, 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 when our people don't even have internet connection, right? Yeah. So long story short, the current situation in the capital market in Europe has meant that now the institutional investors and the professional investors are looking to fill the gap of investing in infrastructure projects in Africa. Now, Africans in the diaspora are very well placed to jump into this gap as well. So now we are looking at a situation where we have institutional investors from European capital markets partnering with Africans in the diaspora, right? So now you're bringing in your 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 euros, you're putting it into a fund. We have institutional investors who are matching that with 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. We go and build an airport in Nigeria. We go and build an energy plant in Homa Bay. So this is the future, guys. This is what we're talking about.
Great. I love your point. And there is one comment from Jaro again. I like Steve Odihambo's message. Business in Africa needs to know the business system. There is a lot of disconnection between the business in Africa and the capital markets in the diaspora. You got it, man. You got it. So, Jaro, when are you investing in this VC? We need to know.
Runs a business.
Because we need investors. We need to know. We need to know when you're coming to join us. And we have another comment from Muriel RM, which says, I agree with you guys. Education is the key. We have to educate our people. For example, in Germany, school is almost free. But in Cameroon, where I come from, school fees are very expensive. I am a Cameroonian born, and school fees are expensive. I agree with you 100%. So how can we start, Steve, how can we push in this incentive of getting the basic education for free in Africa? That's another topic for another live stream. But how can, incentives like this be picked up by a VC, by a fund, for example?
That's a great question. Being in business myself, I believe that free enterprise is the solution to most of Africa's problems, right? So it needs to have a business angle. So by business angle, I simply mean if we're talking about free education and this is the mandate of the government, right? So the public policies and people like that, then it becomes a bit blurry and a bit unclear. But then if you're talking about a business angle to education, the first thought that jumps into my mind is slightly higher level, and I'll tell you why. By higher level, I mean, and good that this question comes from a Cameroonian, great that you, Lilian, are Cameroonian.
Yes.
In Germany, and this is the high level I mean. In Germany, we have thousands, tens of thousands of Cameroonian students, right? We have thousands of professional Cameroonians working in Bosch, Siemens, BMW, Audi, in the biggest companies in Germany. The Cameroonian community is the highest educated African community in Germany. Germany is the know-how capital of the world.
Thank you so much. That's really good for my ego. You know, I really feel, I did not have to tell you how intelligent I am, but okay, if you're saying it, I'll take it. Okay, thank you.
This is it, Lillian, and this is critical because, and now I tell you why I'm getting in from high level. We have Cameroonians who are engineers, chemists, scientists, architects. The Cameroonian engineering community is the largest African community in Germany. Mm-hmm. Now, this know-how remains in Germany.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yes.
So when Cameroonians study and they get qualified as engineers and all these professional careers, they need to figure out a way to first set up their own businesses in Europe, in Germany, and employ their own. So we need more Cameroonians working for Cameroonians in Europe. That's where it needs to start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then phase 2 will be how to transfer that know-how. Now, this is the high level I'm talking about. That know-how needs to be transferred back to Cameroon.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So and I'll end this point by saying this. Research and development is human capital, high-level human capital. Research and development is worth a lot. So if this know-how can be transferred back to Cameroon and they use that to set up industries, high-tech industries, high knowledge-based industries, then there will be a business angle because they will be building and developing products that can be sold. Now, I hope you see the full circle.
Yes, I get the picture. It's
Right?
Yes.
So this is what I believe we can do without involving governments to do free primary education. But it's a whole different topic. But that's what I strongly believe.
Very often I tell people, forget about your government. You know, it's just there because there's a country. In the case of Africa, forget about them. And I like the way you talk about the Cameroonian engineers. And when these people start investing, either by transmitting their knowledge back to Africa or investing, the thinking behind their investment changes. And we all have relatives back home. Bit by bit, there will be this shift that will happen and people will make different decisions. So it's a good thing. If you think you don't want to handle that stress, you just want to invest, just know you are not only investing, but you are also changing the mind shift by doing that, because a relative will pick that idea and will start thinking about it. Right. So Jero says, haha, I'm talking from an African business point of view. It's just great for someone like me to know what's happening in the space. We are grateful that you are part of this conversation and that you're letting us know how you feel. But note that we are here for you. If you have questions, you want to discuss further, just let us know. Now we have another question from Joy Away. My question, we all know government in Africa are the blockage of development of Africa. How are you helping investors to go through this barrier to still support Africa?
Brilliant.
That's a good one.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Joy. I will go back to infrastructure and infrastructural development, infrastructure projects. Right now we have the Chinese. The Chinese, they are the big gorilla, in this whole field. Like the Chinese are getting in, they are building roads, train tracks and all these things. African leaders are very well aware of the fact that they need infrastructure. Right? Mm-hmm. So then they are quick to align themselves with whoever can help them achieve these goals, right? So we cannot go away from developing infrastructure in Africa.
I get the point. I get the point. What you're saying is that once they identify someone who can help them with infrastructure, they kind of hang on to that.
Yes, because this is what Africa needs, like from a fundamental standpoint, right? And now Africans in the diaspora, now this is going back to Joy's question. Africans in the diaspora looking to invest and make some meaningful impact on the continent should align themselves with infrastructure projects, right? Because then, taking part in number one, you own a piece of that, right? You own a chunk of a certain infrastructure project, maybe in a county or a province where you come from, right?
Yeah.
So there's that emotional connection. You're emotionally connected to building a port, right? In your country, you're building an energy plant. You invested in that, right? You contributed to the continent's development economically and socially. So it all boils down to putting our resources together, right? If we put our resources together and identify some of these infrastructure projects, then as a group, as a collective, the African leaders are going to listen. They're going to listen to you, right? Economics rules the world. Corporations rule the world. And if you come in from a business perspective and you're putting something on the table, then they're going to listen. So I think infrastructure projects is really where Africans in the diaspora really need to get into.
Okay. And Jaro says we need a shift from the government. We need a shift from the government to do it. Kind of mentality. Change starts with us. Yes, it starts with us. And that's why we're here. Thank you for being here with us. And thank you for, staying with us with all these comments that you have. We really appreciate your time and would appreciate your feedback. Now, moving forward with our questions, is the low entry point the reason why many investors are now jumping to Africa? Is that the reason? You explained different levels of entry point into a VC. So 5,000, almost everybody, even those in Africa, can afford it. Is that low entry point the key to all these investors that are coming to Africa?
By investors, you mean the other high-level investors that are jumping in right now, or African investors?
Not African investors in general.
Okay, fantastic. Again, very brilliant question, Lilian, because this is the reason why African startups lack access to finance, because the capital available in Africa right now is not African. Right?
That hurts. That hurts. Please stop.
It is foreign. It is foreign capital. It is foreign finance. So guess what happens? Number one response to your question: there is a funding gap. So the capital markets in the developed economies, they see that gap and they jump in to fill it. Basic business sense, right? Supply and demand. They saw the gap, they jump in, they fill it. And as concerns small businesses, startups, SMEs, this becomes very, very pronounced, because then you see that the SMEs and startups getting the most amount of funding, the millions, are actually startups that are not run by Africans in Africa, right? So to answer your question in two parts, number one, foreign capital is coming in because there's a gap. Basic business sense. Where there's a gap, someone fills that gap, gets return on investment.
Yes.
Return on investment, however, is very high.
Yes.
Which is even more incentive for foreign capital to be brought into Africa. Infrastructure in developing countries, developing economies, that's the highest return. That's why so many people are jumping in, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the issue there. They will go where there is an opportunity, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, but Steve, Africa is corrupt, slow, and sometimes laid back. How can investors see this as an advantage? Is it not? It sounds all good. We can give all the, but how do we manage this slowness, corruption, and laid back?
I like what Jairo said. I like the comment by Jairo where he said, change start with us, right?
There you go. That's a comment.
Change starts with us. Change has to begin with us. So I, for one, and I strongly believe in the power of one. The power of one simply means if one individual goes about changing his mentality, changing the way he sees the world, then the world changes. That's
Yeah.
really the fundamental truth. If I change the way I look at things, if I change the way I see the world, then the things that I look at change. Okay, so I believe that if the individual can change the mentality and go about building the Africa that that individual wants to see, whether it's in your day-to-day life, how you interact with other people, whether it's the investments you make, whatever the case, there's a ripple. There's a ripple effect. The people around you see, the people around you notice, and that's how lasting change is done. So it really about corruption. Like I personally steer away from things that I cannot change. If someone down in Africa is corrupt, if a politician is corrupt, guess what? That's him, right? What can I change? I can set up an organization. I can set up a VC fund. I can educate Africans. I can train them. I can encourage them to put their money together, and we go out and we identify not so corrupt people to do business with, and we make our impact. So I change what I can, and I don't worry about what I cannot change.
Great point. So we've been talking for almost an hour, and you are telling us about investing in Africa so we can gain some financial freedom, have another source of income streams, because most of the investors coming to Africa are non-Africans, meaning they come get what they need to get, and they're out of it. And Africa remains the same. So you are encouraging us to go there, we as Africans, to go there and invest, especially in infrastructures, so we can change our narratives. So based on that, what does financial freedom mean to you?
Financial freedom means to me that you don't exchange your time for money, right? You do not because time is the most valuable resource. Time is that resource that you can never replenish time. No one has been able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Some people make $1 million a day when others make $2 a day. Right?
Yeah.
It's about use of time, right? And financial freedom would mean that we use the resources available to us to build an asset base, to build a finance base, whether it's investments, so that these savings and investments can take care of you in the future and free you from the time in exchange for money matrix. Most of us are still there. It's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that. Building wealth takes time. And this is another thing I really want to put across to my African brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, building wealth, creating wealth takes time. It takes time. An overnight success, when you see someone and you think that person, that man or woman is an overnight success, it took them 10 years to become an overnight success. It took them maybe 20 years to become an overnight success. So you see them and you go, whoa, it happened overnight. Overnight, 10 years, right? So number one is, let's just realize that we need to delay gratification. Let's not want to get financially free in 2 years. It doesn't happen like that, right? And we need to start thinking of generation. We need to start thinking of our family names. We need to start thinking of our grandchildren. You might not enjoy that level of financial freedom that you see Europeans or Americans or Canadians enjoying now, right? But you will spark the fire. You will kickstart the process that will allow you, right, to enjoy the finer things in life, and your children and your children's children to be in that position. So I think we need to think more long term. That's what financial freedom means to me. Thinking long term, playing the long game, and realizing that it takes time to build anything of value. It takes time, right?
Yeah. To add to that, Africans, especially those back at home, please listen to me. You need to learn before you earn. You need to learn before you earn. You cannot get it in one day. It takes time. So now to the next question is women in the women abroad, those who are absolutely not in the African continent, and they have a little means of investing. You touched this a few minutes ago. How can they get in contact with you, or how can they? We're not forcing anybody to invest in your fund or my fund or whatever fund. How can they start to invest in those kind of projects so that they can gain financial freedom for themselves, to free themselves, if not themselves, maybe the next generation? How can they start?
Very, very, very good question there. Um, so a lot of the work that I do is heavily centered on training, education, and awareness creation. You talked about learn to earn. The
Yes.
richest man in the world, one of the richest men in the world, Warren Buffett, says the same thing. Invest in yourself, right? And build capacity
Yes.
to earn, right? Learn to earn. I love that. So that's why I focus on education. That's why I focus on training. So if you want to take a look at the work that I do, www.steveodhiambo.com. Odihambo is Odhiambo. If you could write that, Lillian, in the comments, would be great. www.steve, like Steve Jobs or Steve whatever, Odhiambo, Odhiambo.com. So you find all my work, everything is there, right? My trainings, I do master classes all across Europe. Starting in April this year, will be in Amsterdam, will be in Germany, will be in Zurich. So all this information is on my website. We do training, we do networking events, connecting people together, right? For someone who is ready to kickstart, ready to jump in and make meaningful change in Africa, put their money to work for them, there are tons of funds out there, right? You can take a look at what people are doing. There are funds in, I think a majority of these funds are in the US. There are probably some in Europe as well. But my 2 cents is look for professionals, look for people who are professionally putting the money to work. We have our own small communities where we put our money together. And I know for a fact that most Africans go the easy way, where they simply send the money back to Africa and they buy a piece of land, real estate. Everyone is buying a piece of land and building a home or houses, right? People, the world has changed. The world has changed. There are different assets, there are different ways to put your money, there are different ways to make your money work for you, right? Not just real estate, right? Not just real estate, not just building a home that you might not even live in. Dead capital, right? So let's steer away from dead capital and figure out how to put our money to work where it actually generates revenue. That's the point, revenue, right? So it's about, if you have a nest egg, if you have some money, you have savings, you have some money on the side, put that money to work and have it generate income, right? So then when it's generating income for you, now that allows you, that slowly frees you from the time versus money matrix, right? So put your money to work, get return on investment, and have that money work for you. That's how I would suggest for people to go about it.
Great. We have 22 comments, but for some reason in BeLive, I cannot see all the comments, but we will answer your questions once this live stream is over. So you've given us advice on putting our money to work for us rather than buying a piece of land. Those are just examples. So tell us about your training. You have so many of them. The best way to connect with you and to know more is through your workshops that you provide all around the world. Tell us a little bit about, give us how, when we attend a workshop, what we should expect from you.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that. So yes, all around the world. I mean, in March we'll be in New York. In April, Amsterdam. Like we are really trying to impact as many Africans in the diaspora as we possibly can. So this is how you can think of one of my events, one of the master classes or the workshops. So we have the training session where I break down the principles, the fundamentals. This year, 2018, we're focusing entirely on investing and investments. Last year, the whole of last year, I focused on how to start and run your own business. So that is done, right? So the first part of my workshops is now available online as an online course. But 2018, we are diving in. We are diving in how to make investments, how to assess, because we get presented with dozens of opportunities a year. You have your cousin calling you, you have a friend from Africa providing you with an investment opportunity. You need to have the knowledge and the information to be able to assess that investment, ask the right questions, and figure out, will I put my money in there, yes or no? So I provide you with these tools. I provide you with that knowledge. And what we also do during the workshops is they are a perfect opportunity to connect and network with like-minded individuals. You need to start hanging around with people who think like you do. You need to start hanging around people who encourage you.
Hold on. So you mean me hanging out with Manjangi women is not good?
if you're that is good, because you are already in an organization where you put your money together. That's great.
Steve,
that is great.
I don't do Njangis. I was challenging you. I don't do Njangis. It's not me. Okay, it's good to know that it's still something good because you're putting your money to work for you, right?
Yes. I'm not one to condemn. I mean, what I realize is this: majority of us Africans in the diaspora, we do things the way we do things because we simply don't know better. And I'm not one to condemn. What I say is, listen. I've had a glimpse. Like a few days ago, I had a meeting with a high-level investor. These are people who have hundreds of millions of euros, right? And that offered me a glimpse into the world of high-level investing that I never had before. People were talking about millions of euros. People were talking about building airports, right?
It's a dream of mine to build an airport in Cameroon. So please tell me about where is the money? I love this conversation, Steve.
So the point is, what I mean by the group, I mean we are the product of the 5 people we hang around with.
Yes.
Right? So this means do your group of friends, do they encourage you or do they pull you down? Right?
Okay.
Do they support you when you come up with a business idea, or do they discourage you from trying to move ahead in life? Right? You bought that new BMW, and are they speaking behind your back? These kinds of things, because you need focus. You need to focus all your energy, all your effort into creating the change that you want to see. And humans have very limited willpower, right? So if you're spending your willpower, you're wasting your willpower by debating with friends whether or not you should go into business or make an investment. You'll not have willpower left to do anything else.
Exactly. Now I can see some of the comments, which is great. In addition to business systems, we need to have business thinking also. Most of us stumble into business. Do not look at it as a cornerstone of the new African personality. Africa has a long history of trade, millenniums old.
Fantastic.
Ooh, I love it. Ooh.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Much appreciation for all your wisdom that you're sharing with us today.
For that. Just to add on that point, you see, dignity, self-esteem, self-image has a lot to do with how others perceive, how you perceive of yourself and how others perceive of you. And in the developed world that we live in today, economics, businesses are after money. If you go to churches, your pastor wants you to donate every at the end of the
It's not
Sunday.
even 10 francs they're asking.
The point is, we cannot pay our rent with hugs. We do not pay our rent with good intentions. We pay our rent in hard-earned money, right? So we need to figure out. How to get into businesses to employ our own. When we're talking about Africans, to employ our own and have money circulating in our own communities. Now, how does that mean, or how does that relate to self-esteem, dignity, and self-image? Because in a community, if a certain community is regarded as good with business, merchants, good with trade, that means they have financial capability. They are financially empowered. And being financially empowered directly leads to respect. It directly leads to honor. Because that is the world we live in today. I'm sorry, that is the world we live in today. Everything revolves around money, right? Let's wake up to that fact. And
Yes.
I will end by giving the example of the Chinese. During the Christmas holidays, I was walking around Frankfurt, one of the busiest shopping streets, and on the window of a shopping mall, they had an advertisement about, I think it was duty free, or how you'd get your tax back if you're shopping in Frankfurt and you come from a country outside of Germany. And believe it or not, this advert was translated into Chinese. Right?
Yes.
The advert was written in English and translated into Chinese. What does that mean? The Chinese man, woman, and child is now a force to reckon with because they are financially independent. They are financially empowered.
Yes.
Right? So people will, and 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the Chinese man, woman, and child was not respected as they are now.
No, tell me about it. Yeah.
Economics, commerce, people, trade, move money, put money to work. People will respect you.
Exactly. So we have so many comments. Now the comments are coming in a little bit late, but we are going to continue with the, we answer all the questions after this discussion. Steve, what can we wish you for this 2018?
That's a good one. I didn't see that one coming. That's a good one. I will answer that in two parts. I believe, Lillian, that I was put in this world to help the human civilization or the human community, and in this case, the African. We need the most. We need everything we can get. I believe that I was put in this world to empower those around me, my community, and improve their experience and push them forward, push the agenda. I call it the African agenda, right? Push the agenda forward. That's why I'm here, right? That's why I do what I do. That's why I got into business. That's why I'm doing the training, the education, the empowerment, so that the collective, so that the future generations can have it better than we did. That is why I'm here. The second part is the work that I do, the empowerment. I would love to help as many people as I can to achieve what they want, to get what they want, right? So I'm actually going to be in Kenya in February. I'll be in the States in March. I will be in Lagos, Nigeria in June. I put out calls on my social media. If you are in one of these countries, reach out to me. Let's connect. How can we help each other achieve our goals, right? And I want to help as many people achieve their goals as I possibly can.
And to do that, from the bottom of my heart, from the same continent that we both come from, I wish you good health for this year, so you can have the clarity and energy that you need to undertake whatever you have as an agenda. Thank you for the light you share. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for all those lives you're going to share. You're going to change, and that you're going to inspire, because the African agenda is not only your agenda, it's our agenda. But when one person stands out this strong, this bright, to innovate, to elevate, motivate, and inspire, thank you is not enough. I wish you good health, Steve.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But before I let you off the hook with those emotional words, there is a very good question, a comment from Maureen, and I'm going to put it on the screen. Building a home, if you don't live in it, is a financial disaster. True, Steve. Better put the money, for example, into treasury bills. Sparbuch in Germany is a stupid thing. Buy land, it increase value, but don't build a home to stay in. Instead, build affordable rental flats. There is so much, when I saw this message, there is so much in it. She has acknowledged what we spoke, but the one thing that drew my attention, and I think people are not paying attention, is treasury bills. That's why I'm sticking on to this message as our last word. Let's not all do the same thing. Buy lands, build homes, sell puff-puff, sell clothes, sell hair, buy from China and sell in Africa. Treasury bills. There are things which are just right in front of us that we could explore, and we are ignoring it completely, looking where the masses, where everybody has failed. We deliberately decide to go there and fail. May this live stream open doors for each one of you listening, those who will listen as a replay. Connect with us. Send me an email, send us a message. I will put you in contact with Steve. This is a good place to be. You are safe in his hands. Go invest. Let's change the narratives of Africa. If this is the very first time you ever came to the aweef live show, my name is Lilianmoeller, and I am the founder and CEO of the African Women's Economic and Entrepreneurship Forum, the place where we challenge the status quo for economic advancement of women in Africa. We chose women doesn't mean we don't like men. We need your support. And Steve is an example of that support. We are the majority. We're going to lead the change. So please come support us. We have more comments. I'm trying to let you go, but the people don't want to go. They don't want you to go, Steve. So please get in contact with us. Joy, Happy New Year too. And let's see what we can do, how we can motivate, uplift each other so we can change our lives. Thank you so much, Steve, and hope to talk to you some other time. I'll catch you in Zurich. I'll be there.
Thank you so much, Lilian. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.